All right, let's jump right into this explainer because Match 3 of the 2026 FIFA World Cup just gave us an absolute masterclass in tactical adjustments. We're breaking down a completely fascinating Group B clash between Canada and Bosnia and Herzegovina, which, if you watched, ended in a really gritty, hard-fought 1-1 draw. The atmosphere inside that stadium, completely electric, just a sea of red expecting a massive opening statement. And honestly, if you love end-to-end action, late-game drama, and managers playing high-stakes chess on the touchline, well, this match had literally everything. So we're going to go step by step through the data and match reports to understand exactly how this stalemate unfolded, and of course, what it means for the rest of the tournament.
So, it all really boils down to one fundamental tactical question. What happens when an unstoppable high press meets a resilient counterattack? Because that was the exact dynamic defining this entire 90 minutes. Yet Canada, totally fueled by that roaring, passionate home crowd, coming out absolutely desperate to make an early statement. I mean, they were flying around the pitch, closing down spaces instantly. On the flip side, you had a Bosnia and Herzegovina squad tasked with absorbing all that immense energy, weathering the early storm, and then somehow finding a way to strike back. It truly became a classic tale of two completely different halves of football. Just looking at how this played out chronologically, the momentum swung violently from one extreme to the other. Right from the kickoff whistle at minute 0, the energy was entirely with Canada. They dictated the tempo, and by the 28th minute, that relentless pressure finally materialized into a well-deserved Canadian goal. But as the clock ticked toward the 45-minute mark and halftime, the underlying metrics actually started to shift. And then the second half, completely different story. It was highlighted by a massive momentum-shifting equalizer from Bosnia in the 67th minute. From there, leading right up to the 90-minute full-time whistle, we literally saw absolute chaos. This wasn't some static, boring draw. It was a roller coaster where the match hung in the balance right up until the very last second of stoppage time.
Okay, so zooming in on that first half, Canada didn't just rely on the roar of the home crowd. They essentially weaponized it through a relentless, suffocating high press. The tactical reports highlight exactly how they pulled this off. They were actively trapping Bosnia's center backs and forcing crucial turnovers deep in the final third. They weren't just sitting back in a mid-block, right? They were initiating contact high up the pitch, winning the ball back within seconds of losing it. And that aggressive strategy paid off beautifully when they converted one of those chaotic attacking sequences into that 1-0 lead. It energized the players, it whipped the supporters into a total frenzy, and honestly, for a solid 30 minutes, they looked like they were going to easily push forward and put the game to bed with a second goal.
But then halftime happens, and it changed the entire complexion of this encounter. While those first 45 minutes were defined by Canada's chaotic aggression and high-octane pressing, the second half completely belonged to Bosnia's calculated possession control. Actually, if we look closely, even late in the first half, the data shows Bosnia and Herzegovina starting to plant a vital tactical seed. They stopped forcing long balls, they dropped their tempo slightly, and they started creating spaces through quick, short passing sequences. Now, the Canadian defense held firm going into the break, but that shift in approach was absolutely critical. The halftime interval gave Bosnia exactly what they needed: a moment to take a breath, regroup, shift their shape, and basically flip the script on how the game was being played.
So, Bosnia and Herzegovina emerges from the tunnel with a completely renewed sense of urgency. And the key here? They didn't panic after falling behind. Instead, they boldly put their foot on the ball. They began to control the lion's share of possession, systematically dismantling Canada's pressing structures with composed, incisive passing. This wasn't just some lucky break against the run of play either. It was persistent, structured pressure that forced Canada into a much lower defensive block. And that persistence paid off beautifully in the 67th minute. A perfectly weighted through ball slices right through the Canadian backline, leading to a clinical finish that leveled the score at 1-1. It entirely silenced the home crowd and completely shifted the momentum right back in their favor.
One goal, 1 point. But man, that single point was earned through an absolute trial by fire for both squads. After that equalizing strike, the match was finally balanced on a knife's edge, and both sides essentially threw caution to the wind to push for a winner. I mean, the final 20 minutes were played at a frantic, almost breathless pace. Canada came incredibly close to scoring on several dangerous set pieces, while Bosnia and Herzegovina remained this constant, terrifying threat in transition, totally exploiting those exhausted Canadian legs. There were goal line scrambles, massive missed opportunities at both ends of the pitch. Honestly, either side could have easily walked away with all 3 points. But in the end, they both had to settle for a single, incredibly hard-fought point.
Now, when we look at the engines driving this match, you have to immediately highlight Canada's attacking unit. Their off-the-ball movement in the first half was just an absolute masterclass in making an opponent uncomfortable. The attackers were interchanging positions flawlessly, dragging defenders totally out of structure and keeping Bosnia under severe strain. But conversely, Bosnia simply doesn't survive this fixture without their midfield orchestrators. Those central midfielders completely absorbed Canada's immense physical pressure.
They rarely gave the ball away under duress, and they masterfully dictated that second-half tempo. Their resilience right there in the center of the park was for sure the undeniable catalyst for their impressive comeback.
So, stepping back to look at the bigger picture, what does this all mean? Well, this result has massive implications. For Canada, getting on the board in front of an expectant home crowd is a huge relief. Their World Cup campaign is officially, legitimately underway, and they've proven they can dominate top-tier opposition for long stretches. And for Bosnia and Herzegovina, that second-half comeback proves they possess the tactical resilience and flexibility required to survive deep into this tournament. But ultimately, this 1-1 draw completely blows the doors off Group B. There's no runaway leader establishing early dominance here. These shared points mean every single team in this group still has a very realistic fighting chance as we head into the next round of fixtures.
So, with the points shared and Group B incredibly wide open, the ultimate question remains, who will survive Match Day 2? Canada has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that their high-pressing attack is lethal, and Bosnia has proven they are absolutely never out of a fight. But with the stakes this incredibly high and the margins this razor-thin, the pressure is only going to amplify from here. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes squarely on Group B, because if this match was any indication of what's to come, we are in for a truly spectacular tournament. See you next time.